Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Dr. Tauqeer Hussain, working as Assistant Professor in Department of Clinical Pharmacy, Jof University, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. First of all, I would like to pay my thanks to the organizing committee of Second International Symposium on Pharmacotherapy Innovations. I was asked to briefly present about the role of pharmacist or the role of pharmacy in the clinical trials. So I will try my best to cover this topic, to cover my discussion in just 7 to 10 minutes. So there is a brief introduction about me. And as I have told you that I'm currently working in the Jof University in the Department of Clinical Pharmacy. I have done my PhD in clinical pharmacy from University Sains, Malaysia. And after that, I joined Department of Pharmacy Practice in GC University, Faisalabad, where I also worked as a coordinator for the Department of Pharmacy Practice. And my research inputs are not much vast, and I have published around 120 scholarly articles. And I authored one book with Springer on the title of Expanded Dengue Syndrome. And I have published around 24 chapters in different books. And currently I'm holding 12 research grants, as well as I'm also working as an editorial board member for various journals, including PLOS One, PLOS Neglected Tropical Diseases, Frontier Pediatrics, BMC Public Health, and many others. So we come to our point, what is the role of pharmacy in clinical trials? So before going to discuss about the role of pharmacists in clinical trials, we just have a brief overview of evidence-based medicine. What is evidence-based medicine? Evidence-based medicine is conscious, explicit, judicious, and reasonable use of the best evidence available at that time for the management or for the care of the patient. So in simple words, evidence-based medicine means the use of the best evidence in patient care. So what is the classical example of the evidence-based medicine nowadays? COVID-19 pandemic. Before 2019, we were not familiar with this word COVID-19. And at that time, we do not have any information on the management of the COVID-19, as well as about this virus in our books and in our literature. So how we are dealing with this pandemic? We are beating this pandemic with the help of evidence-based medicine. We are using the best evidence nowadays for the treatment of COVID-19 patient. So here, this question comes, what is the evidence? Evidence means scientific proof. It means if you have a best and strong scientific proof, this is the evidence, and you can use this evidence in the clinical practice, and this terminology is referred as evidence-based medicine. So we have a different types of the proofs. We will not go in the details of the different types of the proof. Just from this picture, you can see that we have different levels of the proofs, and the strongest research design in the field of healthcare sciences is randomized controlled trial. So the randomized controlled trials are the best and strongest evidence in evidence-based medicine. So what is the clinical trial? According to the World Health Organization, clinical trial is a type of research in which we evaluate the effects and efficacy of different tests and different treatments on the patients to improve the patient outcomes. So if you want to see the importance of the clinical trial in evidence-based medicine or in the management of the patient, you can just search the word COVID-19 in clinical trial database. And I found 7,000 clinical trials registered with the name of the COVID-19, the treatment and diagnosis. So within this short span of time, we have around 7,000 trials on COVID-19. So this figure gives us an idea that how important are the clinical trials in the management of the patient care or in the management of the patient or patient care. We have the different phases of the clinical trial. You know, the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. In phase 1, we just discuss about and we investigate about the dose and safety of the drug in small number of patients. And in phase 2, we discussed about the primarily we see the dosage regime that will be used in the phase 3, and we determine the short-term risk and side effects of the investigational drugs. And in phase 3, that we do in a large number of patients, our primary objective in phase 3 is to evaluate the risk versus benefit of the investigational drugs among patients. We compare our drug of interest with placebo or with other existing treatments. So if we have a satisfactory results from phase 1, 2, and 3, this investigational drug will go in the market after taking a license from the relevant authority. And then the process will start post-marketing surveillance. This process of post-marketing surveillance will further evaluate the safety and efficacy in a large group of patients. So this is a brief introduction about the phases of the trial. I'm not focusing here because we have a short time. So why we need a pharmacist in clinical trial? This is our point. Why we need a pharmacist in clinical trial? Because we are using a drug, not only a drug, we are using an investigational new drug in the clinical trial. And it is understood, it is legally, professionally, and ethically liability to involve a pharmacist in a clinical trial research team. Because I strongly believe that if there is a drug use, there should be a pharmacist. I give you one example. You know that we have the different types of the studies in the clinical trials. The clinical trials can be open label, single blind, and double blind. Open label means everyone in the trial team, even the patient knows about the drug. Single blind means the patient does not know what treatment they are receiving. And double blind, everyone in the team will not know about the drug. This is a double blinding. So if everyone has no idea about the investigational drug, that which patient will receive the investigational drug and which patient will receive the placebo, then who will know? At least one person should know that which drug will go to which patient. I will give you one example. There was one study in which the scientists compared two fluids, the crystalloids and colloids, for the treatment of the colorectal cancer. The study is published in British Journal of Anesthesia in 2013. And in this study, all the research team was blinded, even the patient was blinded, but only one person, pharmacist, was not blinded. He was aware that which patient has received the colloid and which patient has received the crystalloids. So why I am sharing this example with you? I'm sharing this example with you just to highlight the importance of pharmacists, that in this trial, the sponsor trusted on the pharmacist, that pharmacist will be a person who will do the blinding and will give the drug to the investigators and to the patients. So a good multidisciplinary team for the clinical trials, there can be a many members in a clinical trial team, but at least 7 members should be present in a clinical trial team for a good clinical trial. And they can be the sponsors, physicians, pharmacists, nurses, clinical research associates, and clinical research coordinators. The clinical research associates are the person who is responsible for the data entry, data accuracy, and data management. And clinical research coordinator are the person who coordinate between the principal investigators and the sponsor. And at the end, we should have a biostatistician. These 7 members, they make a successful clinical trial research team, or you can say an ideal clinical trial research team. So now we come to the pharmacist role in clinical trial. There are many roles of pharmacists, and there can be many roles of pharmacists in the clinical trials, but we will just focus on the few important roles. That one is, if we see the first one, pharmacist is in a right position to provide his or her expertise in drug composition and design. I believe that no other healthcare professional is competent enough to provide this expertise in drug composition and design. Number two, pharmacists can supervise the indication, adverse drug reactions, interactions, and other drug therapy-related problems in the clinical trials. And all of us know that this is a prime responsibility of the pharmacist. Pharmacists in the clinical trials can ensure that human subjects are safe and their rights are in compliance with the Institutional Review Board guidelines. The protection of the patient is also the responsibility of the pharmacist, and pharmacists can provide the safety to the human subjects in the clinical trial. Number four, pharmacists can record the drug receipt and drug dispensing. This is a conventional role of pharmacists for recording of the drug receipt and drug dispensing. The same role can be extended to the clinical trial. Pharmacist is responsible to take the unused drug and to destroy the drugs. You know that at the end of the clinical trial, every investigational drug should be destroyed. It should not be available in the research premises after the drug is consumed or the trial is over. Number six, it's obvious the prime responsibility of the pharmacist is packaging, labeling, and substance analysis, and same responsibility we can extend in the clinical trials. Number seven, verification of lot number, expiry date, and handling, storage, and route of administration. All these things will be ensured by the pharmacist in compliance with the sponsor. And provision of the quality drug, you know that pharmacist is expert in quality control and quality assurance. So he or she can extend this expertise or this competency in the clinical trial. Then number nine, pharmacists can also work as a clinical research, the clinical research coordinator, just to coordinate between the principal investigator and the sponsor. I believe that pharmacists can also work as a clinical research associate. We have a knowledge of the drugs. Just by acquiring the knowledge on biostatistics or data management, we can be a clinical research associate in a clinical trial. Last, data protection, data custodian, and documentation. Documentation is a very serious responsibility in a clinical trial. Every aspect, every point of the clinical trial should be recorded. If you have conducted a trial and you don't have any record, there is a no trial. Because it is a very famous proverb that if it's not written down, it did not happen. And if you can't find it within 1 hour, it does not exist. So documentation and data protection is very serious responsibilities. And these responsibilities can easily be performed by a hospital or clinical pharmacist in a clinical trial. Recently, National Health Service, they acknowledged the role of pharmacy in clinical trials. And they clearly mentioned that pharmacists should be involved in a clinical trial from drug design until the destruction of the drug at the end of the clinical trial. So this statement is very encouraging for the pharmacist. And also one statement for MHRA. MHRA is also a research body responsible for conducting different kinds of the research in the field of the health discipline, in the field of health sciences. And they recently issued one policy that every PhD student in MHRA who is doing PhD in pharmacy will be a part of the clinical trial research team. So these are the good initiatives. And recently in 2017, these initiatives have been taken. So These two organizations, they well recognize the role of the pharmacist in clinical trials because they know that there are a lot of benefits after having a pharmacist in a clinical trial. The benefits are not limited, but here we will just discuss four major benefits that can be that can be present at the end of the trial. And what are these benefits? These benefits are highest standards for medication safety, highest standards for quality, efficacy, and safety, highest standards of safe and effective use of medications, and highest standards for continuous compliance and audit support. In simple, if a trial is successful or if a trial is failed, it is ensured that a right drug was given to the right patient in a right dose, in a right dosage form, through right route of administration. So all the 7 rights will be ensured when a pharmacist will be available as an integral part or as an integral member in a clinical research or clinical trial team. So now I'm concluding my talk or my discussion on this topic. This question was asked me during the same kind of the presentation in Saudi Arabia, that can pharmacists be a principal investigator in clinical trials? A very simple answer of this question is no. The trials in which the investigational drugs are being used, pharmacists cannot be a principal investigator. Only physicians can be a principal investigator because ethically and logically, physicians know how to manage different types of the complications in the patient after taking the medications. Yes, pharmacists can work as an expert in clinical trial. But the answer of this question is also yes. How it is yes, I will show you some examples. Here you see 2 studies. These are the pharmacist-led studies in which pharmacists did a clinical trial, but in this trial, no drug was used. In place of the drug, pharmacist interventions were used to improve the outcomes of the patients. So you can be a principal investigator in pharmacist intervention study. And this is a new field nowadays. Several studies have been published. And recently we have also published one study by taking a data from Pakistan that we divided the patients, the chronic kidney disease patient, in 2 arms. And to one arm, to one group, we provided pharmacist intervention. And to other group, we did not provide pharmacist intervention. And at the end of the study period, we compared the outcomes among these 2 groups. And we found that the group which received pharmacist intervention, their outcomes, knowledge, and compliance was good as compared to the control group. So simply the answer of this question is yes as well as no. And I have described to you that how it is yes and how it is no. So the take-home message is we are the experts in safe and effective use of the drug. And this expertise will give the confidence and competency to the principal investigator to conduct the clinical studies. So this is your take-home message. And after that, thank you very much for your patient listening. And I'm very sorry I was unable to attend this event virtually due to some official assignments. But if you have any query or you want to discuss something, you have my email ID at the end of this presentation. So you can contact me anytime without any hesitation. At the end, I'm also thankful to Dr. Malik Hassan Mahmood for inviting me on this auspicious event. And I'm also thankful to Dean of Faculty of Pharmaceuticals, the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Dr. Shazia Bukhari. And I appreciate the efforts of Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences to uplift the pharmacy research in Pakistan. And at the end, I will just say thank you and have a very good day. Assalamu alaikum.